What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Raj Report. It's time to talk about the Toronto Raptors because we have some news regarding Pascal Siakam, but I'm going to also be talking about James Harden as well and his demands that he has made from the 76ers and how this has opened an opportunity for the Toronto Raptors. And I will be discussing that in today's video. I'm going to be going through some stats as well. So if you're ready to watch this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you wish to hit the subscribe button as well, that would be very much appreciated. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, for anyone that has been following basketball news in the last few days, we've all heard about the 76ers and the James Harden situation just getting uglier and uglier day by day. It was being reported that the 76ers do not plan on trading James Harden because they didn't like the offers that were made. And James Harden responded by saying he will not be reporting to training camp for the Philadelphia 76ers, and it just seems to get uglier and uglier. James Harden called out Daryl Morey today. He's in China. He announced it in a video saying he's a liar and he will never be in part of any organization that has Daryl Morey in there. Now, you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with the Raptors? This is a 76ers issue, not the Raptors. Well, there was a tweet dropped today by a name that very many fans are familiar with by the name of Dropping Dimes 20, and it was being tweeted out before quickly deactivating his account at Siakam. Likely not getting traded. Good chance an extension with the Raptors is coming. I find this very coincidental that, just a few days after the 76ers and the James Harden situation seems to be very messy, that the Raptors may have decided, maybe trading Pascal isn't the best option. Maybe they want to slowly build up and slowly contend in a season or two. Now, of course, the Raptors didn't have a successful last season. They missed a play and it was a messy season, but we all know the roster is so much better than what they performed last season. But I also want to quickly touch upon some few other things as well. In terms of the Raptors, how does this open up an opportunity for the Raptors? I think it's one of those cases where the Raptors should not feel the pressure of trading Pascal Siakam. Now, before people say otherwise, that he's not a number one option, you have absolutely right to say that. And you're not wrong in saying that he isn't a number one option. But should that mean that you should blow up your roster and go young? Not absolutely. I'm going to be presenting some stats and I'm going to be giving you my opinion on why I think the Raptors should actually keep the roster together and hope to contend in a few seasons. Now, for any team that plans on contending, the first thing you have to do is seize up your opponents and your competition. For the Raptors being in the Eastern Conference, taking a look at last year's standings here, you'll realize that outside of Milwaukee and Boston, and sure, you could have thrown, even the 76ers in there last season as the top three contenders in the Eastern Conference. But with the James Harden situation and this absolutely opening up a lot of opportunities for a lot of teams to maybe look to contend now or in the next few seasons, this should be a golden opportunity. After the 76ers trade James Harden, which I believe they will eventually, because we know James Harden can make situations very ugly very quickly. We saw it in Houston. But also note that Joel Embiid will soon likely follow as well. There's no way a Joel Embiid, a soon-to-be 30-year-old, is going to stay on a Philadelphia 76ers team by himself and trying to push them to contention. There's no doubt that he's been with the 76ers for quite some time. He's obviously repeated trust the process, and maybe you've got to wonder, maybe, he's lost faith in the process. It has been some time for him in Philadelphia, and maybe he looks for green pastures, which I would not be surprised at. Now, this allows some of the other teams to move a step forward. I'm not saying the Raptors will be contenders next season by keeping Pascal, nor am I saying that they're going to, have a deep playoff run with Pascal, but you do need to realize the blueprints for a championship teams aren't just made in one season. Unless you're the Miami Heat and you sign LeBron James and Chris Bosh, dating back 12, 13 years ago, then you can make that argument. For most teams, however, that is very unrealistic, and you need to build. Think of this way: when you're building a house, you don't just build a house in one day. You slowly, have the bricks by bricks, or if you live in North America here, you have the frames, you do the framing, then you do other installations of the pipes, and that is how you build a contending team as well. Now, I know it may not seem very bright for the Raptors to do that, given they missed a play in last season, but they do have some good pieces that I feel like they can keep in core of their pieces and slowly build that up. Now, I say this because Pascal Siakam has been a hot name, and if there's any truth to that account, and which they have gotten right many times, it is a good sign. The Raptors should absolutely do everything in their power to keep Pascal Siakam and even try their hardest to keep him and extend him, whether that's this season or next offseason. That should be the absolute best move, because when you look at not only the 76ers situation, some of the trade offers that were being offered for Pascal Siakam, the Raptors weren't necessarily happy. Now, I do wish to present some stats as well, because I think it's very important to realize, although Pascal may not be a true number one option, the Raptors are going to be absolutely horrible if they did trade Pascal Siakam, and there's still a lot of time left in the offseason. They could still trade him. But taking a look at his stats here, you'll notice there's a lot of things that he brings to the Raptors offensively. I wanted to do some research, so I went and looked up, Pascal Siakam's stats, the Raptors stats without Pascal Siakam and with Siakam. And, as you see there, without Pascal, 11 games, with Pascal, a much bigger sample size than 71 games. Now, it is to note that obviously Fred was on that roster as well last season. So some of these numbers may look a lot different with him gone as well. But in terms of without Pascal, let's start in those categories because a lot of hate has been, distributed towards Pascal's way and saying he's not a number one option, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should trade him. I mean, take a look at the Raptors' points per game here. 110.5 points per game, 45 rebounds, 22.5 assists. Their field goal percentage is 43.7, and their three-point percentage somehow got a lot worse, 28.7. Now, you look at the stats with Pascal Siakam, they averaged 3 points more with Pascal in the lineup. The 113.2 points per game, 42.7 rebounds is one of the few categories that the Raptors did better in without Pascal. Assists per game, 24.1. The ball was moving a lot better. Their field goal percentage was 3% better at 46.2%, and their three-point percentage, which may surprise a lot of people, at 34.3% is much better with Pascal than without. Now, I know most fans will look at this number and say, you know what, that's okay. Scotty's going to grow. OG's going to go into a bigger role. Gary Trent is going to grow into a bigger role as well. But there's a very important stat I'd like to talk about here, which is the three-point percentage. Because when people look at that, it may be obviously very surprising to myself included, 34.3% with Pascal, despite Pascal not being a great three-point shooter. But one of the reasons why that percentage is as high as it is with Pascal in the lineup is because of shot creation. When you look at guys on the Raptors that can shoot the three very well, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, why are they able to shoot so efficiently? It's because of the attention that Pascal draws from opposing teams' defenses, and it allows for better looks and also more open looks for guys like Gary and OG as well. And whereas when Pascal isn't there, then the attention is focused more on their of offense as well, but they're clearly not getting the shot off as efficiently without Pascal. So it's obvious that Pascal has a very positive impact. But again, I want to talk about some numbers here because people might be thinking only a 3-point differential in points per game, but when you look at the stats from NBA teams last season during the regular season and what a difference 3 points per game could make. You look at someone like the Atlanta Hawks that had the third best offense in the league at points per game at 118.4, whereas those 3 points below is actually the Denver Nuggets. Now, I know the Denver Nuggets won the championship, so this might not be the best comparison, but you'll notice that it makes a big difference. It just, to us fans, it seems like just 3 points, but there's so much more to that as well. And even looking across some of the other stats as well, which are very important here, I mean, the Denver Nuggets, had the best field goal percentage from the field at 50.4. And when you look at the Raptors, they were much, much worse. So, I mean, that 3-point field goal percentage as well, like you take a look, it goes from number 1 in the league to 13th in the league. And the biggest one I want to highlight is the 3-point percentage, which, I'm not even going to bother highlighting because you can't even reach the 6-point differential, the 6% differential in 3-point shooting with Pascal in the lineup, as opposed to without him. And again, a reminder that Fred, also one of our 3-point shooters last season, is no longer on the team as well. So the number 1 team in the entire league in 3-point shooting last season at 38.7% in 3-point percentage. And I can't even scroll to the bottom because the difference between the top team and 6% below in terms of 3-point shooting is number 1 and the 30th. So there's literally a 29 spot difference between a 6% shooting from the 3-point line. So that is the difference that Pascal makes on this Raptors roster. And I mean, and not only in terms of that, but the goal shouldn't be just to throw, guys like Scotty, OG, and Gary Trent into a number 2 or number 1 option if you do trade Pascal. Now, I'm well aware, guys, that you do get pieces back if you were to trade Pascal Siakam, and I'm well aware the money that he could potentially be making as well, and their roster construction, but also the CBA rules as well in terms of salaries and how that will impact the Raptors in the future. But in terms of these stats that I just presented, I mean, if that shows you anything, it's that Scotty, OG, and Gary Trent Jr. definitely benefit from having Pascal in the lineup. It's clear the Raptors perform better, whether they're averaging a few more points or not. That makes a massive difference. So why would you want to force OG, Scotty, and Gary Trent Jr. to number 1, number 2 options when we haven't seen them in that role consistently? And clearly the Raptors don't play as good without Pascal. So keep Pascal in the lineup, slowly bring up these guys. And when trades need to be, happening, then you can make the trades as well. So again, I'm not saying the Raptors should acquire someone like a Damian Lillard. I'm not saying they should trade for someone like a James Harden, but this definitely opens up the opportunity to see where the Eastern Conference will go a season or two from now. It can change very rapidly. Sure, super teams can form in the Eastern Conference as well. But if James Harden and Joel Embiid both, get traded to Western Conference teams, you really have to question, should the Raptors keep this roster intact and try to build upon that and maybe become contenders in a few seasons and trade some of the younger guys as well as there's a few first-round picks for some star potential and, star players that could push them over the top. So that is what I think in terms of Raptors. I mean, the Eastern Conference as well, even the top team in Milwaukee. Giannis has got knee issues already. He's about 28 years old. Jaylen Brown and, Jason Tatum as well. You've got to question how many more Eastern Conference losses. I know it sounds ludicrous to even say something like that. How many more Celtics Eastern Conference losses can they take before they decide to split those two up? So those are the questions. And the Cavaliers as well. Is a backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell going to work in the long term? So those are some of the questions you have for Eastern Conference teams. Of course, no team is perfect, but this is the best opportunity for the Toronto Raptors to keep their roster together and maybe look to contend in a few seasons and build upon what you have right now, slowly, progress. So I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, I do have a trivia question for you today. And the trivia question for today is, Michael Jordan won the NBA MVP during the 1991-1992 season. Who was second in MVP voting behind Michael? Was it A, David Robinson? Was it B, Clyde Drexler? Was it C, Karl Malone? Or was it D, Patrick Ewing? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. And as always, I do appreciate your support. And I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.